Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Fernanda Echavarri. I'm a reporter at Mother Jones. I cover immigration and immigrant communities for all of our platforms. And I am excited to bring you the latest in a series of live broadcast conversations from Mother Jones, this time with the wonderful Diane Guerrero. You may know Diane from her roles in Jane the Virgin, Doom Patrol, or Orange is the New Black. You may also know her as the author of In the Country We Love, a book that she wrote about her own family separation story when her parents were deported at the age of 14. Diane is an actor, activist, and author, and overall super cool person. So I'm very excited that you're joining us, Diane. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me. I was going to say welcome to you too, but yes, welcome to us. How are you? I'm doing wonderful.
I'm doing well. Yeah, I think we're both in LA, but we have to talk in this way because of everybody's health. So you've been quarantined here in LA the whole
I
time?
have the whole time. The whole time. Yeah, the whole time. I've been here. I was finishing up shooting my show Doom Patrol in Atlanta, and suddenly the world was different, and we were all suffering from a health crisis. And so I came straight here, and it's been good. It's been a good time to be home I'm so aware of my privilege to be home and that I'm safe. So I feel good.
Well, and I feel good that you, from time to time, share content of your adorable pups that you're quarantined with. So
Oh
we
yeah,
appreciate all the dog content that you can share in between
sure,
everything else that's going on.
sure. Yeah, Penny and Sally. I have a big black lab and my little Chihuahua Penny that sleeps on. They're both they're best friends. So Penny
Oh,
sleeps on Sally. It's really cute. I'll put some content on today, just for
great,
that
great,
for you
thanks.
guys' enjoyment.
So for our audience, for the next 30 minutes, we're going to be talking about Daca. We're going to be talking about how the coronavirus has devastated immigrant communities. We're going to talk about the protests, how Trump has basically ended asylum in the United States. And throughout the conversation, if you have any questions for Diane, you can put them wherever you're watching this, and we'll get to them at the end. So Diane, if you want to just go ahead and get started, we can start by talking about the recent Supreme Court decision on Daca. Just a quick refresher for our audience, DACA is a program that President Obama started in 2012 that protects young immigrants from temporary deportation and gives them a work permit. And about 700,000 people in the US currently have that program. Since Trump took office, he decided he was going to dismantle it. It's been through many hearings in different courts. And the Supreme Court finally ruled against the Trump administration last week, saying that what he did and the decision to end it was arbitrary and capricious. So, Diane, I want to hear from you about sort of why DACA has been so important for the immigrant rights movement and what this decision means for so many people.
Well, first, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the activists, the people who are and have been on the ground making this possible, making sure that our stories are heard, making sure that they're out there protesting, demanding rights, and letting the world know that they are here to stay unapologetically. Um, and that has been wonderful to see, that kind of self-governance, that type of action from folk that is actually a part of our Constitution, that is part of the very fabric of this nation. So I applaud those young people who have been out there time and time and again, making sure that our community is heard. Of course, it was a relief to hear the Supreme Court decision, seeing the way that our community has been treated, not just since this administration has been in office, but throughout our history. Um, and seeing the way that that our community had been attacked, um, not just by this administration and hateful rhetoric, but also by this pandemic. We've seen the disparities clearly when we see how COVID has affected our communities disproportionately to that of the white community. Uh, and where was I? I get like lost in the zone. I like see myself on the steps of the White House, like demanding justice. Um, we've seen how our community has been affected, but we also see the just how we have to at this moment really look and see how we can be a part of change. Obviously, 700,000 DACA recipients are safe for now, but we need a permanent solution. We need to dismantle oppressive institutions like ICE, just like the police, and or any type of militarization that we have in this country, so that our communities can thrive. Um, we've seen protection for now, but we also would like to see that protection for the 11 million undocumented folks in this country that consider this country their home.
Yeah, I think you mentioned sort of how this is a for now solution, and there's been also so much that can be done outside of those who qualify for DACA, for the parents of DACA recipients, and for people who do not fall in those categories. And to your point at the beginning of the answer about the people who are going out on the streets and who have protested, I mean, we know that DACA was a result of all that pressure. I mean, Obama didn't just sit down and write DACA because he wanted to.
Right.
So many people who took to the streets and protested and demanded some sort of protection. And in a way, I guess we've seen so much in the immigrant rights movement, so many quote unquote wins after that public pressure that I guess that can kind of relate a little bit to what we're seeing on the protests right now. There's so many people who have taken to the streets, and we have seen small, tiny gains here and there in different cities and in what people are reacting to. So I know you've been very active in the protests and the Black Lives Matter movement and the anti-police brutality actions. So I'm curious, what has been something that really struck you as far as the meaningfulness of this moment and the protest, or maybe a particular anecdote from when you've gone out there, or anything that has really sort of moved you right now?
Well, I think right now is something that is very clear to me is that our movements are tied, right? That my freedom is tethered to that of Black freedom, and that's very clear to me now. I've had to look at myself and how I have benefited from whiteness, and and evaluate that and my role in all of this, and how important it is for me to not, when I say that my freedom is tied to Black freedom, or a people's freedom is tied to Black freedom, that's not making sure that I'm not discounting the already 25% of Latinx that identify Black.
Mm-hmm.
And so my work has expanded. I've also had an awakening of that it is not enough not to be racist. I have to actively do anti-racist work within my own community as well, and making sure that I'm uplifting Black Latinx voices, and in connection to the Black community.
I just want to follow up about sort of what specifically do you see as something that you've benefited from when it comes to whiteness?
Well, I mean, growing up, all the representation that I saw in my house, from watching telenovelas or any Latin newscaster or media outlet, all looked like me and then whiter, right? I never saw a representation of the Black community, and that is whitewashing. That is something that also plagues us. Racism in our community plagues us as well. I was constantly reminded that I was, the image of what Latinx looks like, or Latinx representation, when I know simply that is not true. And of course that we learn, and we're all victim to this, is that the lighter you are, the more value you have. And so I honestly find that it is an incredible disservice. It's also a tool that has been used to divide us. Just the fact that, you know, us as Latinx are not considered a race. We're considered an ethnicity. And so if we are out there identifying, you know, able to identify as Black, able to identify as Indigenous, able to identify as white, then it's going to be hard to really, as a collective, fight for one common goal, which is our liberation, which is tied directly to the liberation of our Black siblings. Um, Now, some may argue, like my friend Julissa Arce, incredible author and activist who I admire incredibly, and I just want to lift up her voice, is that perhaps we consider ourselves a race, and a race of what we are, which is Black, Indigenous, and white, and therefore we can fight alongside and our so that we can have also some power, because like this we are too divided.
Absolutely. I mean, the more güerita, the better is a message that was sadly fed to me my entire life growing up in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't learn anything but good things about the Spanish colonizers. And I think that this is a moment for all of us to really sort of look at our own communities, look at our tias and tios, and let the people who have sort of fed this to us, because it's been fed to them. And we just, it's our moment to stop that from getting to the younger generations of Latinos, for sure.
Yeah, we have to actively educate ourselves. We have to unlearn the colonizers' language. We have to unlearn all these notions of whiteness that honestly are used against us, right? And we need to really see how that has been to our detriment. And so that's going to take a lot of education, a lot of patience, a lot of self-love, right? If you don't know something, allow yourself to be corrected. Allow yourself to experience you know, learning, because we all have to do it. We are all victim of this oppressive system, and we've all fallen victim to whiteness. And so our job is to unlearn all that shit, and be the best people we can be, and and look to our leaders, and look to our Black leaders for guidance.
Yeah, we have work to do.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. But work that is necessary and is going to be exciting.
Absolutely.
Promise.
Thumbs up kind of work.
Exactly.
I want to shift gears just a little bit, which is not shifting too much, because we're talking about sort of the systems in place that have allowed a lot of this to happen. And I want to talk about your role in Orange is the New Black. You played Maritza Ramos, a show that in Orange is the New Black is the show about women in prison, and it highlights the many flaws with the criminal justice system, but also the many layers of the women who end up in the system. And I particularly want to talk about the last season of the show, where you go into the storyline of the immigration detention facilities and the machine that is this for-profit detention of immigrants, that if you thought prison was bad, this really highlighted how much worse it is in there. So I'm curious to know sort of the behind the scenes conversations when you learned that the writers and the producers wanted to go this route. What was happening behind the scenes that maybe you can share with us a little bit, and why that mattered?
I mean, it mattered because if they didn't address it, then that would mean that they were tone deaf, right? Not addressing the systemic issues that we have, to me, is such a disservice. And so that's why Orange is the New Black is such an incredible show. Why I'm so proud to be a part of it is because there's no way that they could have talked about mass incarceration and as it affects different people and across different genders and class and race without mentioning detention centers and ICE. So it was what was happening in the moment, and it's still happening, right? We were seeing families separated at the borders. We were seeing children put into cages. We've seen all these atrocities come up of abuse, of and of course of dehumanization. And so I'm so happy that we decided to share that story, and that story was also told through my character, which I was so happy about because I really think that the audience deserved a story like this, so that we can continue this conversation. That's why we're artists. That's why we're telling these stories, is so that we can move the needle forward, so that we can make things better. Unfortunately, um, what we portrayed on Orange isn't half of the evil that is going on in these detention centers, and the way that people are treated right now, in Adelanto, California, in a detention center. Um, while social distancing is impossible, and while lack of health services are rampant, we're seeing our people who are detained asking for sanitation, and for cleaner spaces, and their pleas were met with the detention center or the officers spraying them with toxic chemicals. And the need to continue telling these stories is so that we can humanize these folks. The fact that they're also being dehumanized, they're being dehumanized in these detention centers, and by the way that they treat our families. There's also dehumanization in the stories that we tell, especially when we don't tell the full truths, and especially when we don't have the people who are living these experiences telling the stories.
Think I mean, that's something that's been talked about a lot, and it's the representation on screen, and not just having more Latinos or more immigrants on screen, but being seen as a full person, as a three-dimensional character, and looking really at what it means to be an immigrant and what it means to be Latinx in this country right now. So I know that you've been involved in some campaigns to try to make sure that that's a focus of writers and directors when they're writing movies or TV shows. So um, where do you see where we are now? I'm sure you've seen some gains when it comes to representation, but what are you seeing as what's working, what's not working right now?
What's not working is not having representation um, throughout the entire industry, right? I mean, if we continue not having enough writers of color, people of color making decisions, or even behind the camera, from the gaffer, from the lighting person, from the uh, uh, just across the board, if you're not seeing representation, then the people telling our stories are, I mean, by no fault of their own, but that's just because what the reality is, they have a limited view or a limited approach to our lives. And that's why it's important for us to be represented across the board. It's not enough to just have Latinx talent, or like one que otro Latinx family story. You're telling me you're only producing one uh Latinx story a year, like, or four, and then, oh, sorry, we didn't pick it up, we're not able to show it because there's not enough support. Well, you need to be producing more then, so that at least more than one get a shot. We need, it's not at all where it needs to be. It's still under the industry is still quite oppressive, and it needs to change. Now, that's not to say that I'm not grateful for the roles that I've had a chance to play, but I've had to fight for that, and I've had to be very vocal. So I think if anything that I've learned is that you ain't gonna get anything unless you demand it, and understand that we belong here, and that our stories are do deserve to be told, and there should be inclusion in all areas. And I don't want just your chief diversity and inclusive officer, and have that be a person of color. I mean across the board, decision makers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I wanted to go back to something that you said about the storyline and excuse me, of Orange is the New Black and inside immigration detention facilities, because right now, and I know you've pushed for people to take action when it comes to calling representatives and calling ICE to demand the release of people who are in detention right now. We have seen, as far as what ICE is reporting, there's been more than 800 cases of people who have tested positive for COVID-19. There's certain places like Eloy, Adelanto, who really, the people in those facilities are so desperate and so anxious, and there's no, I mean, these places are notoriously known for having terrible healthcare, even on a good day. So I know you've put out some calls of action to some of the people that follow you on social media. So
Mhm.
can you tell me a little bit about sort of your process when it comes to getting people involved and using your platform for that?
Mhm. Mhm. I mean, I don't know if I have a process other than I just wake up and I'm like so taken by all of the um injustices of the world, and I try to think about what my place in all of that is, right? And with care, right? Because there are times where I just jump out of bed and I'm like, I have to do this, or like, what's burning, and these people are still suffering, and like that's not the way that that you're going to help anyone. And even though we do have those days, we have to just honor ourselves to take a second and to evaluate how we can most be effective. Certainly is educating ourselves on what's going on is first and foremost, and then supporting the people who are doing this work. That means by donating, that means by voting, that means signing the petitions, making sure that you take out some time in your week to do this crucial work, because this is our job, right? This system has been in place and it's working exactly the way that it's working.
Hmm.
And what we fail to realize is that there are spaces there for us to dissent, to use our voice, to organize. And the opposition continues to tell us that our mission is futile and that our efforts go on deaf ears, but they're not. It's working if you continue to apply pressure. And I know that I'm dedicated to this work, and if you are too, then you have to continue working. Um, and that means supporting the folks who are doing that work.
And there's so many organizations and so many people that are doing this work, and really a lot of these organizations in different cities and states have become the lifeline for so
Hmm.
many undocumented folks who right now in this pandemic have not qualified for any sort of federal relief, and who,
Hmm.
like, if some of us think it's bad to go through this with government assistance,
Right.
um, I mean, the undocumented community has just been hit so hard with this pandemic.
Hmm.
And in a way, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but in a way, it sort of highlights the just huge difference of what life is like when you are a citizen or not. And
Absolutely.
I think that, yeah, this pandemic has really brought those disparities into sort of the very, very, very front and center of this pandemic. So I want to like just hear from you about, maybe a little too philosophical, but the meaning of being a citizen, because you can be a citizen by contributing to your community. You work, you live here, you have family here, but when it comes to that relief check, you're not.
Right.
And sort of what that means.
Well, that means that we have a huge responsibility. And we've seen in our communities that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have that paper, the citizenship card, the green card. It doesn't matter. They will take your mom, they will take your dad, they would put them in a disgusting detention center, and leave you out cold. It doesn't matter if what kind of citizenship you have. So it is our responsibility to continue fighting for that respect, for our rights, because we contribute so much, because we are human beings, and because we belong here. I wanted to mention really quick. Some of the things that we also should be doing is understanding where our dollars are going,
Mm,
right? There are so many organizations and companies out there that are using our consumer dollars to continue funding detention and continue putting bodies in there for profit. So understand how your dollars are contributing to private prisons and companies that are in line privatization of prison, and that is making it possible to continue abusing our community. What did you say before that? Well, we'll just continue talking.
We'll just continue. There is plenty to talk about when it comes to immigration issues in this country.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a question here now that is related to this from Sean on Facebook. So I'll ask you that. Diane, you say you need to create a brand new immigration system. Do you have any ideas for what that would look like? Big question.
What are my ideas for what immigration? Well, certainly not the one we have right now. We need to invest. Right now, we have 480, and I'm reading my notes here, $480 million in federal funding from ICE to organizations like GEO. Right, these are the people who are responsible for making these detention centers happen and making sure that that our people are not free, and making sure that we continue on this terrible system. We need to get imaginative. We need to envision a world without detention. We need to invest that 480 million plus billions of dollars into our communities, into community-led programs. We know that over-policing, we know that that over-policing and detention centers equal death. So why not let our community heal us in the way that it needs to heal us? So by investing that money into community organizers, and I'm sure, and I know that there is more imagination here than what this administration and what this world has made us believe. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. I know that we need an update of the visa system. I know that this system is designed to keep Black and brown people out. I know that. So let's change that. And there are plenty of people out there who have great ideas, and we should start by taking the evil folks out and putting in people that have amazing ideas and who care about humanity and who care about people.
I think on the keeping people out, this administration has succeeded in doing that. This administration has tried every single route to close the door on asylum at the border and asylum in the United States as we know it. This is something that was set up after World War II to give people refuge in this country who need it. And it really has sort of shifted the conversation of what it means for the United States to be the place where people came asking for help, and we've shut the door on them. So on the vein of imagining things, what does a U.S. that embraces asylum seekers look like to you? What would, if you could imagine a fix to this right now, what would it be?
Well, I would say start by acknowledging the damage and the hurt and the pain that this country has caused other countries, right? I mean, we think about asylum seekers, those are people that are displaced. Those are people where their resources and their resources have been depleted, or their governments have been destabilized, that the US has personally contributed to. And so that would be first, right? Understanding that we understand our history and take that into acknowledgement. Because if we don't acknowledge how we are part of the problem, how we have been part of the problem, then we can't find a solution. When we criminalize people for seeking asylum, we're saying we don't care that we went in there and blew up your city. We don't care if we went in there and destabilized your economy. We don't care if we helped bring about some tyrant or some oppressive leader to your country. We're saying we don't care that we did these atrocities. And that is not, I think we can start by saying we care. We understand, we acknowledge, we hear you. It's time for reparations.
Hmm. That it's all very tied to a lot of the, at least what I see you do and talk about in social media. And I think that the activism part of sort of the role that you've taken on over the last few years, you really have used your platform, whether it's sitting on a couch on a like late night talk show or on your own social media. And I just want to learn a little bit about sort of how that started, or why do this? Why bring these conversations that maybe in the Hollywood scene may seem a little bit uncomfortable to some people, and why you do it?
Because I can't continue living in a world like this.
Mm.
I can't continue to smile and say, it's okay. Thank you. I can't live like that anymore. I can't continue to see people murdered. I can't continue to see people suffering in this way, and to have this privilege, and to to be to be able to have this platform. And I'm not saying everyone needs to assume this responsibility, but
Right.
as a woman of color, as a Latinx woman, I see it as something very personal, um, in my journey, and in my um, what's the word, my purpose. Um, I've I've seen injustice since I was a kid in my community. I've been seeing injustice when I was in school, and I saw kids that were hungry. I saw injustice when my mom would be pulled over, and with her broken English would be made fun of and demeaned by police officers. I've seen injustice by my family being abducted by immigration services. Um, I've seen my niece go to jail, and so I don't want that life anymore. And so I'm gonna continue doing this work, and keep on trying. I understand that this is a lifelong work, and if anyone interested in getting themselves involved really needs to understand that this is lifelong, and we have to continue fighting. But certainly, when we see revolutions such as this one, it is time to activate. It is time to um, right, not forget about all that troubles you, not push away to the side your hurt and your pain, but see it as a chance for healing, because that's what our community needs, that's what our world needs, is healing. Um and and I can't see any other way of healing than participating and getting involved.
What makes you hopeful?
What makes me hopeful? I mean, everything that we're doing, everything that I see going on, our revolution is an act of hope.
Mm.
Our hope is an act of revolution.
Mm.
Um, so I'm excited to see people more interested in this. I'm excited um, for people holding each other accountable. I'm excited to see all this learning that's happening. It's so important for the type of transformative justice that we need and that we want. um, I'm just happy. I'm happy that I'm aware. I'm happy that I know. um, I just remember how lonely that felt when I didn't know.
Um, I believe somebody on Facebook wrote this as you were saying this.
Mhm.
It's from Pamela, and it just says, "Thank you for your activism. You are an excellent role model for the Latinx children." I'm
Thank
sure
you.
I'm sure you hear that a lot. You really have built a community, at least from the outside. That's what it looks like. You've built a
Sure.
community on your social media presence that is seems like a two-way street, where you are putting out information from other organizations, and while also sort of making a lot of us feel like you said, this is work that we got to keep doing. And don't forget
Mhm.
that just because, the protest is over this weekend, you're still going to post about it tomorrow, and you're going to keep reminding us of what's going on. So I'm sure a lot of
Absolutely.
people feel this way too.
Good, good. I want to be held accountable, just like everybody else. I want to continue uh, being open to learn, to unlearn. That's the place that I'm in right now, and that I hope to see from our community moving forward. Um, we have to unlearn like all of these um, lies that we've been taught, that we're not enough, that we don't have any power, that we we can't change anything, when that's simply not true. We can. We are enough. We can change, and and we belong.
I can't think of a better way to end this than with that. So thank you everybody who tuned in to watch. You're going to be able to watch this conversation in full wherever you're watching it now. It'll be available there later. We're also going to have a version of this on our podcast next week on an episode of the Mother Jones podcast. And I just want to remind any of you who were not already reading and hearing and watching what we put out at Mother Jones, we're covering everything. We're covering the uprising, the pandemic, the election, which we cannot forget about. And I have really, really, really smart colleagues that are writing about all of that. So check that out at motherjones.com. And Diane, I am so thankful for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And maybe next time we can do this in person.
Absolutely. I love Mother Jones. Thank you so much for including me in this conversation. I have felt the support from you guys before. I have to be honest. One of the articles that I have, or one of the interviews that I have appreciated so much, one of them has been from Mother Jones. A while ago, I was interviewed by Mother Jones, and it has so far been one of my favorites. So I appreciate your trust in me, and I appreciate the work that you guys are doing with the community.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.